We're back with Garth. Introduce yourself, Garth.
Yeah, glad to be here. Garth Ruff, beef cattle livestock marketing specialist for OSU Extension.
And you are out of, is that Morgan County?
Yep, western edge of Morgan County.
What area do you cover? I mean, are you the state beef specialist or?
Yeah, all 88 counties as needed.
So you travel?
Yeah, and and the first person to have that statewide responsibility, in addition to would have been Dr. Boyles on campus, and he just retired this spring. So kind of a one-man show at the moment, but hopefully we get that changed sooner than later.
So you've got double duty on top of covering the entire state.
Yeah, a little more paperwork than what I was accustomed to.
I can imagine that. I can appreciate the paperwork side. So tell us a little bit about yourself. You're from Morgan County.
Grew up in Morgan County, kind of small operation, background in some calves. We messed around with some cows when brother and I were in FFA, tried to raise a few club calves for him to show. I showed pigs at the fair.
Okay.
Showed steers a couple years. Him and I raised some dairy feeders, just commercial calves there. A couple batches of them, and so kind of always been in the cattle business. Father managed sale barn there in Zanesville. Been doing that I think since '99.
Okay.
So I can remember riding around with him as a kid. We'd go sort fat cattle, to different farmer feeders in about a 6-county radius, and moved a lot of fair pigs in our time, and had the opportunity to go to Ohio State and jumped on it. Glad I did for multiple reasons, and started 4-year degree, and I guess they haven't got rid of me yet. So,
what year did you start in this? Whenever you went to work for Ohio State, did you start in as the beef specialist, or did you have a role prior to that?
Yeah, I was a county educator in Henry County. That was a vacant position, similar to Jackson, for 12 or 13 years. Started as a county educator up there, kind of got that program back on the wheels. It was kind of funny. Got a swine and beef background, and they put me in the flattest county in the state with
That's what I was thinking.
Campbell soup and commercial vegetable production. So learned a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of good people up there.
Yeah.
And this position came open and had the opportunity to get back closer to home and specialize in, something I had a little more interest in.
What you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. And you started in this, I think the first time I met you was 2018 at the Beef 509. Is that about right?
Yeah, it could have been. I was still in Henry County at that point.
Okay.
I was about the only person hired or moved during the COVID era.
Okay.
In Extension, kind of switched roles in a COVID loophole type thing. So started this role September 1st, 2020.
Okay. Good. So you've been into it almost 4 years.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sure by now you're getting your bearings. Of course, you sounds like you grew up in it, so you already had a good background to begin with.
It was, interesting growing up as a kid and riding around all these different farms and seeing what different farmers did, as far as feeding cattle or background in calves. And, I went to Ohio State in animal science, really didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be a vet. That wasn't any interest to me.
Sure.
It started on the meat judging team, and the Henry Zerby was the coach of that, and they started putting me out there doing these 4-H county fair carcass contest.
Okay.
Kind of extension programs.
Yep.
I thought, this is cool. And then I coached the team for a year as I did my master's, and then the job in Henry County came open.
Okay.
So it was a different path than maybe what I anticipated, but it's been pretty good.
Good. I don't know that any of us really know at 18 what we want to do for the rest of our lives.
If you'd asked me when I started at Ohio State, I was going to work in the swine industry, breed sows. I did that for an internship, found out that wasn't what I wanted to do.
I was there.
Yeah. I'm not a person of habit or routine, and
Sure.
I was pretty good at breeding sows, but man, that got boring after
Doing
about
the same thing over and
Over and over.
and over. Yeah, I can only imagine.
feed sows, check heat, breed sows, feed sows, go home. Yeah.
Yeah, so here I'm sure you get to see. I mean, you touched on it, you get to see all sorts of operations, right? It's probably something different every day. I would imagine.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the intrigue. I'm in the office 1 or 2 days a week, then spend most of my time on the road, either doing programs or making farm visits. I work a lot with the county educators. They're probably my primary clientele, as they plan beef programs,
Okay.
make sure we're on the right track and teaching what we're supposed to be. And then working with farmers in conjunction with their county-based extension folks.
Hey guys, let's talk about one of our sponsors. We couldn't do it without them, and that sponsor is Lazy Creek Meats. We all know Lazy Creek Meats. It's owned and operated by the Fannin family, and they've been raising cattle in South Central Ohio since 1950. They are now on their 4th generation of farmers since 1950. They continue to preserve their mission, and that is to produce high-quality beef the way nature intended, without all that subtherapeutic antibiotics and without all the growth hormones. They pride themselves in being stewards of the land and giving every effort in maintaining a sustainable farm operation. They don't use herbicides or pesticides on any of their grasslands, and they utilize rotational grazing along with other best forage management practices. And that helps them optimize their hay and forage production as feedstock for their animals. All of their cattle are fed a diet of free choice grass or forage with all natural supplements of corn, soybean, vitamins, and minerals to produce quality product while maintaining the superior health of the animal. From conception to consumption, their vision is to feed the family and the customers quality beef for generations to come. Guys, look them up on their Facebook. They're all over social media. They take very well care of their farm and their animals. If you go out by their place, you'll see it's neat as a pin. And that's important stuff whenever you're consuming beef or whenever you're looking to consume beef. You want to see what kind of food that beef is eating. And I promise you, you cannot do any better than what the Fannins are doing out there with Lazy Creek Meats. So get on their Facebook page. You can order right there from it. I believe you can on Instagram too. But just shoot them a message if you've got questions. They're constantly sharing recipes and ways to cook and different things. And for all you chubbies out there that are listening, if you saw that cow tongue that we fixed here a few weeks ago, that came from Lazy Creek Meats, and I'm telling you, it was delicious. So give those guys a call or look them up on their Facebook page at lazycreekmeats.com.
I listened to an online webinar just a couple weeks ago, and it was with an accountant, and the guy said, if I could tell everyone one thing, it's to track your numbers.
Oh yeah.
So I want to ask you the same thing on the beef side. I'm sure you've traveled all 88 counties. You've seen all sorts of operations, from collared cattle to Holsteins to whatever. What's one thing you think that we could do as an industry to just improve on?
I think the record keeping is part of it. It's a hard thing, especially in eastern and southeast Ohio. These guys got small cow herds. It's kind of a harder thing to quantify the value of good records. But I think kind of where, and I'm having a meeting on this here this afternoon, is, let's really dial in on beef genetics, right? That genetic base is probably undervalued across the state.
Would you offer to say that it's undervalued because there's a lack of understanding of it in our area? Maybe.
I don't know if it's a lack of understanding. It's what they say, the 9 most dangerous words in agriculture. Are going to do it the way we always have. We've always bought a bull. We've always visually appraised heifers based on how they look. So I'm really interested in taking a deep dive in genomics. Trying to put a proposal together for a research project.
That would be great to have something
where we could demonstrate the value of genomics at the station. With the heifer development here at Jackson, we got the heifer calves at Eastern, at Caldwell, where my office is. And those two stations kind of work together. So how can we use genomics to demonstrate the value of good genetic selection, but also
Yes.
improve the herd here at Ohio State.
Yes. So it'd be a win-win research, right? But at the same time, like you said, really understanding those genetics and how can we use that data.
You know, and then getting producers to buy into, you know, there's a little bit of cost associated. You know,
There is. But I think if it's used correctly, it
should pay for itself.
paid dividends years over years, right?
That's kind of what we're hoping to show.
You're right. Good.
You know, the dairy industry's
They've been doing it for years.
been doing this for 20 years, and we're so far behind genetically. You know, they know the genetic potential of that dairy heifer sometimes before they're born. You know, and we're waiting 9 months to, do I keep her, put her in the cow herd, or do I send her to the sale barn? You know, there's a lost time opportunity there.
Do you think that we're behind times as a state or maybe even a region versus the Midwest, the what I consider the cattle producing states, you know, Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, whatever?
Yeah, probably a little bit. And it all comes back to herd size. You know, the average cow herd in Ohio is 17 cows. Now, granted, I don't know what the average cow herd in Texas is, but it's probably not a whole lot bigger in the grand scheme of things.
Okay.
Your small producers, you know, when you start taking more small producers, that averages out the big ones.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay. I never thought of it like that.
I heard once it's like 37, 38 cows,
So it's not
but I've not looked it up.
it's not 800 like
No.
we would envision.
No.
Okay. So they're experiencing the same challenges probably that we are, I would imagine.
The smaller producers, I'm sure.
Yeah, as a smaller producer.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, and then when you have a smaller cow herd, you got to divide the cost over smaller numbers. And, you know, I get some of the pushback. Even, you know, for years, it was hard to get bulls in Ohio to sell over $3,000. Now, this cattle market currently has changed that, but it's been interesting to watch the last couple of years.
I want to talk a little bit. I don't remember if it was in your session or Kane's or someone else's. So we was at that, it was a beef forum where we was at Todd Bryant's back in February. And in one of the sessions, you guys had made the comment, you need to pay whatever your first 5 calf value is what you should spend on your bull. Was that in your section?
Yeah, that's kind of a old school rule of thumb, you know, estimation what the value of that bull is. You know, so for these calves are, you know, we bought some calves this spring for $1,500 a head.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
You know, 4 or 5 years ago, those were $700.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
So now it's not out of realm to spend $7,500 on this bull.
Yeah, you know, just here the bull sales that I attended this spring, you know, the bulls here in Ohio average anywhere from $3,500 to $4,500. You know, almost $1,000 over what they were a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of the sale reports out of Kentucky, you know, they've always had a little stronger bull market than we've had, but their averages were quite a bit higher too.
Okay.
Hey, Chubbies, welcome to Season 1 of the Rural Roots Podcast with your host, Creek Chubb, a.k.a. Kyle Fannin. You guys are going to love this season, mainly focused around agriculture and just anything land, okay? But we couldn't do this without our sponsors. And the first one that we're going to talk about is Bickle Insurance Services. Those guys handle everything from pollution liability to crop insurance to home and auto insurance to your farm needs, anything. The main thing is that they focus on at Bickle Insurance is coming up with a plan for you. So make sure you give those guys a call, and Kyle, aka Creek Chubb, he's going to tell you how to call them right now.
Guys, give Aaron or any of his team members a call at 740-593-7311 or at bickleinsurance.com.
You'll be glad you did.
How long do you think, and I know this is a little off topic, but you know, everyone's talking about the cattle market right now. If you had a crystal ball, where do you think that is going to go?
Oh man, if I had a crystal ball, I'd start trading cattle futures, but
Both of us.
you know, we're playing a numbers game right now, and the numbers aren't looking very favorable. You know, these guys in the West, if they start to keep some heifers, you know, we're going to see the high then, I think. You know, the question that I have is, if you look at beef numbers on a 75-year trend line, we are on a downhill trend, right? These cattle are getting bigger. They're more efficient in terms of pounds per animal. Do we even get that cow herd back to pre-COVID numbers? I think that's a fair question to ask at this point. But if we see significant expansion, I think we'll see the high point when we start putting those heifers back into herds and pulling them out of feedlots.
Okay. So whenever that producer says, "Hey, this animal's worth more to me as a cow, as a replacement, than as beef,"
and a couple things got to economically make that decision, right? 250 feeder cattle this spring. I'm not going to keep a whole lot of heifers.
I didn't keep any.
Then the other thing's interest.
Yeah, what's the money worth?
Yeah, I mean, do you want to put $100, $200 worth of interest into this cow or heifer if you're buying them? That's going to be considered too.
Yeah. It's all good talking points. Well, I want to switch back a little bit. One thing that I've grown to greatly appreciate is your time and efforts into the OSU Beef Team. And that's how I've always referred to it. Is that the correct terminology?
Yep. Us as a group.
Yeah.
We work on programming and the weekly newsletter. The OSU Beef Team. How can we,
because I've struggled with this, how can I get on that weekly newsletter? I've heard about it, and that's one thing that I've never been able to narrow down.
Well, you send me your email address, and I can do it manually. Or if you just go to the website, there's a tab that says Ohio Beef Letter at the top.
Okay.
Click on that. There should be a self-subscribe.
Okay.
Put your email address in there, and it does it.
Does it? Okay. And what is that website?
beef.osu.edu.
Okay. And with that, some of the programs that I've seen you work on is the I don't want to mess up the terminology again, the freezer beef profitability report. Can you speak a little bit about that and who all worked on that and maybe the economics that went into it?
Yeah. During COVID, I think we've seen more interest in local foods in general, and especially freezer beef here in Ohio. Folks that were marketing freezer beef maybe for the first time ever. And there for a while, I was getting 2 or 3 phone calls a month. What should I sell my freezer beef for? That's not my decision to make. I can help you come up with a number within a margin of error, but that's ultimately the producer's decision. So after talking, and right before COVID, we kind of revamped our fed cattle budgets. Used to have 6 of them, whether you're feeding yearlings, steers, heifers, calves. And I said, we got to simplify this. Let's come up with 2 options. If you're feeding on a steer stuffer, here's option 1, or self-feeder.
Mm-hmm.
If you're feeding cattle once, twice a day with a TMR, here's another option.
Mm-hmm.
Feed efficiency is a little different.
Yep, I would agree.
And we made it so one producer had to know a little bit what their feed efficiency was, to ask that question. Average daily gain, most of them can ballpark that, but what is their gain to feed? Then COVID hit, right? And we're getting all these freezer beef questions. Well, can I take our base fed cattle budget, put another sheet to it, and kind of figure out what are those wholes, halves, and quarters worth on a wholesale? And then we broke it down to some of the common retail cuts. And you as a producer can plug and chug those cuts, the different pounds and ratios. Then we just use the base USDA price, and you plug in whatever % profit you want. So Stan Smith and I kind of worked that over. If you've probably seen Stan's name,
mm-hmm.
He's been in Fairfield County for, probably longer than I've been alive.
Years.
When he started the beef letter, they were faxing it out. If that's any indication, but Stan's got a pretty good grasp on, the big picture things that the questions that are high,
sure,
are being asked here in the state.
If nothing else, I think that's a good tool to get producers thinking. If they go to work with it and it's like, well, hey, I don't know what my feed efficiency is. Well, maybe I should start checking that.
Have them reach out to a nutritionist. That's usually one of the recommendations when they start asking those questions.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of what Stan and I discussed as we played around with that spreadsheet is the retail side of things, maybe not as rosy as a lot of people think it is.
I can tell you from a producer, it's not.
Yeah.
The one thing it does is it sparks interest. and it's a it's almost a seed, if you will, because if someone will come to you and buy maybe a ribeye or a New York strip or whatever, right? They may come back and say, "Hey, this was good. I want a quarter, or I want a half, or whatever." Not to hijack you, but yeah, I do agree.
Yeah.
There's an immense amount of marketing time, marketing dollars.
And we let you plug that number in
Because
because it varies greatly.
It varies tremendously because this is a market that you can spend as much or as little as you want in marketing. And you've really got to, if this is something you're going to do, and I'm not opposed to anyone doing it. Listen, I'm convinced that in Jackson County, let alone Ohio, the state of Ohio, there's more than enough consumer demand for the product for all of us producers to go around. And I will go on the record and say this: there is no sense in arguing amongst producers over whose beef is better. I love what Dr. Garcia says. Listen, stop arguing over whose is better and just rally around the fact that someone's purchasing beef, and let's support the product. Is that fair?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when I see things on social media about, my beef's better than X, Y, or Z, I usually screenshot them, and I've put them in a presentation on how not to market.
Yeah, that's
direct to the consumer, and there's some dandies out there.
There is, and it's something my wife and I've always shied away from. We've always the negativity is not for us. That's not what we want. We don't want the arguing. You'll never hear us say that our product is better than someone else's. But that being said, you've got to find creative ways to market that product.
Oh, yeah.
Something.
Hey, Rural Roots listeners, let's pay the bills by talking about some of our sponsors. And one of those sponsors is going to be RNC Packing. RNC Packing is proudly owned by Jamie and Amy Graham, and they've been in business since 1997. That's almost 30 years down there, and that's harvesting cattle and hogs. So if you guys need some good prime or some good choice beef, that is the place to go. And the reason I say prime and choice beef is because they are one of the only facilities in the area that offer USDA grading for beef carcasses. Hey, that's pretty important. Everybody goes to the grocery store. You look at your steaks. You look at your cuts. You want to make sure that they're good. Well, these guys down there at RNC Packing, they are certified to do that. They offer complete harvesting, and they also offer retail cuts. So, hey, if you've got your own beef and you want to take it down there and get it butchered, give those guys a call, and that's going to be 740-245-9440, or you can look them up at rcpacking.com. It's real easy, rcpacking.com or 740-245-9440. Let them take care of you. RNC Packing, located in Southern Ohio. You'll be glad you did. They've got some of the best seasonings you'll ever taste. They've got some of the best meat cutters that you've ever seen in your life. You will be completely happy with your butchered beef. I promise you, you'll be glad you did. Thank you, RNC Packing, for sponsoring Rural Roots Podcast.
As a farmer, we're pretty good at producing things, right?
We're horrible marketers.
Absolutely. I mean, I'll attest to that myself. It's a lot easier for me to load that animal up on the trailer and send it to the sale barn.
Right, and especially, you had a much more intimate experience with the sale barn than I did. And in one of my previous podcasts, I talked, and, for years, my dad and we struggled to understand that market. Okay, one of the first things we learned was, hey, don't sell in October. Because there's a 3% increase from October to December.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And then if we precondition a little further and maybe we take that to February, well, then wait a minute. If we hold these things to yearlings when there's green grass, it's a huge learning curve. But you're right. At the end of the day, we're our own worst enemy when it comes to marketing.
Yeah. I mean, in a lot of cases, the best thing we can do is just the opposite of what everybody else is, as far as the seasonality throughout the year. You got a few sheep at home. I do not want to sell lambs in July, August, and September. I just don't. The fair lambs,
inflates the market or deflates the market, I guess.
Yeah, there's just more pounds of lamb available. So that's why we shoot for those holidays early in the year, and try to breed those ewes to kind of hit those early
to hit maybe a March, April.
Yeah, March, April, May.
Okay.
You know, and same thing with cattle. You know, just like call cows, there's seasonality to marketing call cows.
There is.
You know, if you can market your call cows in either January or April, May, you're all better off than October, November.
Yep. And taking time to understand why.
Yeah.
And that's where I would really emphasize folks. I don't want to say reach out. I mean, yes, reach out to you, but really pay attention to the programs that you guys have put together, because all of this information is available in all these programs. Is that fair?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, we've covered the cattle cycle and the markets, and we record a lot of. If we do a webinar, our YouTube page is pretty. I mean, there's a lot of information there. There's a video that John Grimes did years ago on making baleage. I think it's got 100,000 views or something like that.
I haven't seen that one. I'll have to look that one up.
Or hay storage, maybe.
Okay.
And we've done a more recent one since. But there's all kinds of information on that YouTube site.
So you've got the website, beef.osu.edu.
Yep.
And then you've got the YouTube channel.
YouTube channel, and then Stan manages Facebook page.
Okay, Stan manages. So is that why we get the is it weekly, I think, or morning? Stan's articles come out at like 5 a.m.
Should be about give or take 9, 10 o'clock on a Wednesday.
No, it's always early in the mornings. I mean, I enjoy it. I was always just curious if there was a point to that.
Well, he schedules Facebook posts 2 or 3 times a day. That might be
it.
Yeah, some of those are pretty early, like 4:25.
Yes. Trying to catch that morning crowd, I guess.
Yeah, while folks are drinking their coffee or mixing feed.
Yep. Okay. Well, good. Is there anything else on the beef team side that you want to touch on that I didn't?
Yeah, I guess the biggest thing is don't hesitate to reach out to us. I mean, that's why we're here. You know, I've made a farm visit here a while back. I don't know, it was up in Harrison County, and you know, the guy says, "What do I owe you?" Well, you've done paid for our service, right? So you might as well use it. You know, especially the county-based staff. You know, that's your taxpayer dollars at work.
Yeah, and I would reemphasize locally, you know, especially Jackson County, don't be afraid to lean on Josh Winters.
Oh, Josh is great. He's a little highly caffeinated in the mornings, but he's been one of the roles that I've kind of taken on this year was onboarding our new county educators. And, you know, if we could find a Josh Winters for every county, I think we'd be pretty happy.
Yeah, I know we will be extremely happy to keep him. I just want to be able to keep him and Maddie both here. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, the turnaround that I've seen since I've been coming down here in the program in Jackson County has been really good.
Yeah, they've made huge leaps. Well, good. Well, I'll get into our closing questions real quick. Who's one person you would like to hear on the show?
And we kind of talked about this a little bit before. You know, I've traveled a lot, met with a lot of farmers, and I'll maintain that 2 of the more interesting guys that I've had the opportunity to work with are Scott Payne down here at the station, and Justin Spangler. You know, very unique views on farming and agriculture, you know, and how they can apply some of the stuff that we've done here at the stations. And then the other one would, you know, Kane Lewis, is the educator in Sauter County.
And he's the ag educator, correct?
Yep, ag and natural resources. Started a little bit after Josh.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Kane's got a pretty unique story. You know, he fell out of that tree stand when he was 19 or 20 years old and paralyzed from the waist down. But, you know, he doesn't let it stop him.
No, I mean, I don't know him extremely well. I've just been to several of the programs that you've put on that he's attended and played part of. You know, one of the ones that sticks out in my mind is when you put the slideshows up on heifer selection and cull cows.
Oh, geez. That was an HR violation waiting to happen. That's why I pled the 5th.
Yeah, but I mean, he did it on himself. I mean, he's super comfortable, and he's extremely knowledgeable in my experience with him. So he's definitely someone I would love to reach out to get on here for the next season for sure.
Oh yeah, if you get him started on wildlife and natural resources, I think that's one of his passions, and you know, and we need folks that work in that area, and I think
yes,
you know that's an area that he'll be really good in
good
throughout his career.
Okay, can be expecting an email here shortly. Yeah, excellent. What's one thing you can't go a day without doing?
You know, I like every day to be a little bit different. We've kind of touched on that. You know, probably the most consistent thing, maybe, well, I just had our biometric screening, so maybe it's not as consistent as I thought, you know, but I'm pretty routine, cup of coffee in the morning, glass of milk at night kind of guy. Now, maybe not when we're done farming at 10:30, but 7, 8 o'clock, I can drink a glass of milk and be in pretty good shape. So those are probably the two main things. You know, probably eat too much beef. I think that's what the lady kind of hinted at yesterday. But
you can't.
Well, depends on whose definition you're using, I guess.
I'll never forget. I was at my biometric screening at Rumpke one year, and you know it was a room full of 10 or 12 of us, you know, getting poked and prodded, and the questionnaires and everything, and you know, truck drivers are naturally larger guys, and this nurse, she was very, very healthy. I'm not making fun of her at all, but she looked at him and she said, "Sir, I just want you to know that you're morbidly obese." And he looks across there and goes, "Huh, lady, if you looked in the mirror, you ain't no spring chicken." And I've never been able to take a biometric screening serious ever since then.
You know, it's the same story pretty much every year when I do it. In ours, you don't have to fast.
Yeah.
But they always ask if you ate breakfast.
Yep.
Well, yeah. Well, what do you normally eat for breakfast? Well, they don't like the answer bacon and eggs. But that's what I give them yesterday.
Yeah. You know, you shouldn't eat that. All that cholesterol.
Yeah. Shouldn't do a lot of things.
Shouldn't. But yeah, here we are. Yeah. And the last one, who was someone that you go to for advice or lean on?
You know, it probably depends on what I'm doing or what hat I'm wearing. You know, I've been pretty fortunate that, you know, going through college at Ohio State to have, you know, some professors that were pretty good mentors. You know, once in a while I'll pick up the phone, give them a call if I got a question that's got me stumped. You know, and then starting out as a county extension agent, you know, you kind of look to, you know, the joke in extension is there's 88 ways of doing things. Well, you kind of gravitate towards some of those educators that you think are doing things right.
Sure.
You know, some of the educators that I've worked with and, you know, kind of appreciate how they've done things, whether it's Ted Wiseman in Perry County, and Ted's been down here, you know, kind of our fencing guru.
Yeah.
You know, Bruce Clevenger was one, Glenn Arnold, you know, just trying to pick up some of those good habits as you start this career.
Yeah.
You know, and then of course my dad, you know, if we're doing something cattle related at home, we might always not agree, you know, but you know, opinions, his thoughts definitely have value as to, you know, to what we're doing. And hopefully he's at home planting beans today, trying to get that done. But
get the beans in the ground.
Yeah, we got about 70 acres to go, and we'll have that wrapped up.
Good. Well, it looks like you got a couple dry days.
Yep, and then start mowing hay.
Never ends, does it?
Yeah, it'd be boring if it did.
That is true.
You know,
that is true.
I like to stay pretty busy. And
do you guys put out much in the terms of crops?
I think we got 130 acres of beans total this year. We don't have any bins, and I maintain until we put a bin up, corn's just too much hassle. You know, you got to get it dry, and then you got to get it to the. I mean, it'd be nice to grain bank some at the feed mill, but you know, you look at the input cost of corn, and
I can't make it make sense.
No, I mean, now if you need a corn silage or something for feed,
correct,
then it's a little bit different story. But
Yes.
So we just rotate beans and hay
Okay.
on ground we own, and we rent a few acres.
Okay. Do you graze like the bean stubble or anything like that, or have you messed with any of that?
No, don't like to build fence on rented ground. That's part of
Okay.
it. I don't. There's not a whole lot of nutrition in that bean stubble. By the time you get it baled, and that stuff's dusty, and
Well, I was just meaning throwing them out there, if not baling it. And the reason I bring that up was that was something my nutritionist suggested. So he come out to the farm here a couple months ago, and he's like, "Hey, let's make better use of this ground. Let's start doing a bean rotation, and let's throw the cattle out on it in the fall and the winter. Stockpile some fescue on your pasture while they're on this bean stubble or whatever." And he even mentioned corn, grazing
corn fodder. Is
corn fodder
good.
and stuff.
Good gestating cow feed.
Yeah.
Early mid gestation. I don't know about grazing bean stubble.
I don't know.
There's
I don't
there's some fiber there.
Just not a whole lot of nutrition.
Well, and the tonnage is way less. I mean, you're not going to get as many days on bean stubble as you will corn fodder.
Okay.
As far as giving the grass a break.
The intriguing thing to me was getting something out of the ground other than just making hay on it.
Oh yeah. The thing I think we got to think about is how those nutrients cycle, and if those cattle are staying on that field for a period of time, they're going to cycle those nutrients. Whereas we start baling corn fodder and bean stubble and trying to mix that into feed, and then we're just robbing P and K from those fields and become miners.
Exactly. Yes, because it's a whole lot more expensive in my budget to put the P and K back on after the fact than to just let us set.
Fertilizer hasn't got a whole lot cheaper from the peak, and
no. It's not got a whole lot cheaper, and it's definitely no cheaper to apply it either.
No, I mean, we fortunate enough to have neighbors get a buggy we can use at times, but our challenge is getting it there. I mean, you're 35-mile round trip with a tender truck. If you have them bring it, or somebody in Southeast Ohio wanted to put up a couple fertilizer buildings, that probably
makes sense. We're extremely fortunate, and this will be a plug for Travis, that we're extremely fortunate to have Jackson Ag here in town. They take care of my grain bank. It's 6 miles for me with my buggy, so I don't even mess with a tender truck. I just buggy it back and forth.
Yeah.
No big deal.
I mean, we're Zanesville, Marietta, Granville for all of our inputs. 45 minutes to a little better than an hour to Granville for feed.
The logistics make a difference.
Fortunate they'll deliver a lot of things.
Yes.
Just from a time standpoint.
Yeah.
Usually what they charge to deliver is worth the 2 hours or 2.5 it takes to drive one way or the other.
Yep. We're good. Well, Garth, we're running out of time, but man, I greatly appreciate you coming on. And appreciate your time. I know you're busy. I know you got a lot going on. So
not a problem.
Whenever
Appreciate the opportunity.
Whenever you go out to the research farm, just poke Scott in the side and tell him he's next.
Yeah, that would be. I'd definitely tune into that. I don't think we get Cliff to talk enough to cover a half hour.
I don't think so. But he's on the list. Trust me, he doesn't know it, but he's on the list.
You might you see several chairs in here. You just get all 2 or 3 of them pinned down and buy them lunch or something. They're pretty motivated by food.
Ooh, I don't know if we got enough time for that one. That'd be an all afternoon one. It'd be like a Rogan cast. All right, man. I appreciate it. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you.